Hey folks, Lachlan here, a South African living with quadriplegic cerebral palsy. As an economic framework, capitalism is extremely flawed. It allows for a system which can be manipulated to benefit the powerful and the wealthy while leaving the poor to suffer in whatever circumstances they find themselves. And it allows multinational corporations to literally become more powerful than individual nation states and to extract their resources while not providing any material benefit to the people who live in those places. However, socialism and its mythical final form of total communism do not eliminate these flaws. In fact, they amplify them. Under socialism, and again, its mythical final form of total communism, which does not exist, even in theory, the incentives to innovate and to create new technologies and new ways of working are almost entirely eliminated because if you are forced to operate within a system in which everyone must be equal, then you have no reason to put in more effort than the bare minimum which is expected of you. Because if you do so, if you show yourself to be capable of more than your fellow man, not only will you not be rewarded, you are more likely to be punished for thinking that you are better than someone else. Because that is the ultimate goal of communism, total equality, in which everyone is the same and no one is any higher than anyone else. However, socialism and communism ignore the fundamental human reality that none of us are equal. Every human being alive on this planet has different skills, attributes, and aptitudes. We are not the same, and we cannot be made the same by force, by law, or by any other method. It's simply not possible. Communism ignores this and tries to push forward anyway. That is why every time a political movement tries to hold a communist revolution, once the revolution is over and all of the opponents are dead, they then begin to kill each other because they very quickly realize that the only way to maintain the illusion of total equality is through authoritarian dictatorship. Because the one thing that a communist regime cannot tolerate is somebody pointing out the obvious flaws within its ideology. Everybody must be a true believer in the communist utopia, or it cannot work. And we have seen this time and again throughout human history, regardless of how different the cultures were or the physical locations were where communism was implemented. Whether it's the Soviet Union, China, or anywhere else communism has been tried, it always fails. Now you might say, oh, what about China? They are governed by the Communist Party of China. Yes, that's true. But you must remember, if you don't already know this, that when communism took hold of China under Chairman Mao, the country collapsed. And the prosperity it has today, or the degree of prosperity it allows, is only generated because it has permitted a kind of capitalism to be exercised for its own benefit. That is why you see so many online shops these days with headquarters in China selling mass produced crap to the rest of the world. Companies like Shine, Temu, and that sort. That is their purpose, to generate revenue for the Chinese government so that they continue so that they can continue to pursue their aims. However, even they have realized that total utopian communism is not possible. It just isn't. I don't care how nice you think it sounds. I don't care how much you just want to live freely and not struggle and just get things without having to work for them. That's not how life works. And the only reason that communism and socialism have remained popular and why people continue to push for them is that the intelligentsia who control politics, media, and academic institutions in our world today are arrogant enough to believe that they can simply outsmart reality itself if they write enough articles and books of communist philosophy, if they institute enough political programs telling people that we're all equal and that all cultures are equally valid and that everyone is exactly the same, they believe that if they push this propaganda hard enough and long enough, eventually the communist utopia will magically spring into being and we'll all just get along and all problems of human nature will disappear overnight. This is frankly bullshit, and anyone with a working brain should be able to see that. I will use a fictional example of the ideal socialist utopia, which would be, in this case, Star Trek. In case you've been living under a rock for the last few decades, Star Trek is a science fiction franchise set in the distant future revolving around space travel. And it's set from the perspective of a highly advanced civilization on Earth with a one world government where the pursuit of economic prosperity no longer matters because humans have developed what is known as replication technology. And replicators are technological devices with the capacity to produce literally anything they are programmed to, literally out of thin air. But even within the world of Star Trek, there are other alien civilizations which prioritize trade, economy, and the acquisition of wealth. One alien race in particular is known as the Ferengi, and they are portrayed for comic effect to be greedy, deceitful, and manipulative. That is their whole point. The whole point of being a Ferengi is to be as rich as you can at the expense of everyone else. So even the writers of Star Trek understand that while it would be nice to live in a totally equal and egalitarian society, people are not equal. Hierarchies will always exist for as long as humans exist. And the desire to want to create your own life and develop your own prosperity is fundamental to the human spirit. That's just a fact. And no amount of navel gazing philosophy is going to erase that fact. As always, I hope you found something of value in this content. Look after yourselves, take care of each other, and for now, farewell.